The damn rain canceled my tea time, so we are going to review a shaft. Stay tuned, and this one's way different, and you're going to like it. Welcome back to the McFitting room. This is going to be the McGolf whole shop thing kind of concept, because we've got a shaft, and it's not like my last one. The last shaft review actually went pretty well. This one is, we'll say, is just on the other end. And because it's early morning on a Sunday, and I'm normally standing on the golf course, and now there's rain coming down, Jim has time to play. And that's what we're going to do, right? So Alvin from Graphite Design, Alvin and I go back a little bit. He's been with a few other golf companies, and we've maintained our contact, collection, whatever you want to call it, friendship in between the beginning to now. And Alvin is a really good guy, and he knows when to not bother me, and he knows when to call me and get on me and talk to me in a way I can hear him. and he's done that very, very well. So he says, "Okay, Jim, Graphite Design, you and them would make a really good pair, because we have grown into where we see a variety of folks." Now, Graphite Design is what I would call, it's not a boutique, but it is a very, very, it is a top-end shaft, right? It's a top-end shaft. It's not for the faint of heart in the wallet, but there's reasons for that, okay? There's reasons for the reasons for the reasons for the reasons. And number one is the technology that they put into their shafts. And we're going to go over that. I get to nerd out with you guys this time around. Looking all this stuff up, I told you I had time. and we're going to really talk about the different things and what all these different marketing names and all these different sciencey type things mean, and that's right in my wheelhouse. All right, so he says, "Bring it on." I said, "No, I am not going to bring this on. What if I don't like it?" And he says, "Well, let me send you one." I did. I ended up buying it, so this is not a sponsored review or anything. So I ended up getting it, and I got the Graphite Design. I told him what I did, and I got the Graphite Design Tour AD. Hopefully you can see all that. The Tour AD XC, the XC6 and the S Flex. Now, let's go back. You guys remember the purple shaft that everybody liked? That was Graphite Design. The YS shaft, right? The YS shaft, that was the one everybody was going crazy over. It was because it was a nice shaft. It was in a profile most people liked. It was pretty daggone good. Okay, so I said, well, what do we got new? Send me something new. Send me something that you've seen my swing and see what it is. So it's the XC6, right, and the S Flex. Now, what does all this stuff stand for? All right, the Tour AD. So there's different codes. So let's get used to Graphite Design. They have different codes. A Tour AD, added distance or additional distance, okay? They have an IZ, they have a VR, they have a couple, and you got to go in there because they're just not all one or two worded things. It's like, there's 3 words. All right, and we'll go through them. Maybe I'll post them down in the bottom in the notes. Anyway, AD is added or additional distance. XC is Xtra Cary, okay? So we got additional distance, Xtra Cary. So what does all that mean? Well, it means that they've came out with 2 new technologies that they're really, really proud of, and that's what we're going to have to talk about in order for us to understand what goes into building a shaft. So number one, let's talk about basics in building a shaft. Number one, in the beginning, the filament wound shaft was the number one thing. And basically, if you had a mandrel, we'll just use my golf shaft here. This golf shaft was in the form of a steel mandrel. And what you would do is you would tie on a piece of the graphite filament on one side, and as it would rotate around, it would feed itself up and down the shaft, very much like a bait casting reel when you're winding it. Now you do that enough times in enough spots, right, and you end up with a shaft. Now typically what you end up having to do this is very, very basic, guys and gals, very, very basic, and then you would pretty much sand a shape on the outside, and voila, you got a graphite shaft. Now there's a secondary way of making it, and it's called sheet wrapping. And sheet wrapping is taking what they call flags of pre-preg. Pre-preg is a flat material that is made, and it's strands of graphite that are glued together, right? They're epoxy together, glued together, whatever you want to call it, and they come in these sheets, and they're at different angles. All right, they're different and they're cut at different angles. So like if you're cutting material and you had this material that you wanted, and you wanted all the lines of the sewing to go this way, but then you wanted some of the lines of the sewing to go that way, and then some to go that way, and then some to go that way. That's what pre-preg is with graphite. So then you take these different shapes, these different ways that they go all the way, and you wrap them around the mandrel, and then you press them together, and you press them together. And then what you do is you wrap them in cellophane, and you hang them in a heater in an oven, right? Very similar to if you guys did powder coating, it would be very similar to an oven. So you get racks and racks and racks and racks of these shafts, dangling along here like hot dogs on a tree and going through an oven. Yeah, I've been around a lot of different industries, and and then what happens is it heats, and that cellophane constricts, and it presses on that pre-preg, and it creates this shaft. And it's a much nicer shaft, honestly. So the basics of the two is the filament wound was very, very consistent. Typically it was harsh feeling, but it's very, very consistent. Where the other one was very, very good feeling, but the consistencies were always there because of it was up to the person wrapping, right? And the way that they would be layered out. Now, it's not to say that that's bad. It's just that's the reason why we are here to check that kind of stuff. Okay, so now that we got all that, that's the basics. So what's the new technology? All right, guys, so you saw me. I was hitting the XC shaft, and I gotta say I'm pretty impressed with it. It's a good looking shaft. Everything is super consistent with it, which in golf, is kind of an irregularity. And in doing so, I've been asked a whole bunch of questions about shafts, and I figured it was no better time than to talk to the folks at Graphite Design, well, about shafts. And we're going to talk to them about their shafts and some of the inner workings of the shafts, and hopefully we all walk away with a better understanding, and for you guys, right, and for you, because the more that you know, the better decisions you can make in picking your next golf gear. So the guy sitting right over here is Mr. Bill McPherson of Graphite Design, and we are going to let him explain just exactly who Mr. Bill is and what Graphite Design is.
Thank you, Jim. Yeah, my name is Bill McPherson. I've been with Graphite Design for a little over 20 years. I'm the Vice President of Sales and Marketing. The company I work for is Pro's Choice Golf Shafts. We're based here in San Diego, and we're the master distributor of Graphite Design shafts covering the US, Canada, Europe, South America, South Africa, Australia. And our role here is to obviously not only supply, but educate fitters, consumers about Graphite Design shafts. I'm pleased to be here with Jim today to talk a little bit more about that.
So we got a heavy hitter here, guys and gals, and Graphite Design, you may or may not know, and you see the orange colored shaft on TV, you might see the white colored shaft on TV. But Bill, what is Graphite Design? What is it? What are we standing for as Graphite Design?
So Graphite Design has been manufacturing graphite golf shafts for over 30 years now. The company is located in Japan. Our factory headquarters is where we make all of the Tour AD shafts that you're talking about, that you've seen on TV in the hands of tour players. For that matter, we've got 29 wins so far this year. Just had a win at the US Amateur, as well as the Kazoo Classic and the European Tour. We had a win at the Masters this year. So a lot of the players obviously utilize our product, but yes, we're most well known for probably the Tour AD DI model, that being the orange and white shaft. But again, we've been in the business for over 30 years. The company, I think, manufactures a superior product. It's kind of I'll call it the Mercedes-Benz of golf shafts. And to your point, you've had the ability to try it. You're very impressed with it. And I think that's where it all starts, is first getting it in the hands of players, whether they're going through a fitting or experience it out on the course in one of their friends' clubs, and come across it and come calling on you, Jim, to fit them into something from Graphite Design.
Oh, we hope that's going to happen here in the very near future. So what I get asked, Bill, quite a bit actually, is the properties of golf shafts and what sets them apart. Like you said, the Mercedes-Benz of the golf shafts. Where how is that separated, and then some of the parameters, right? I'm one of the two biggest things that when we talk shafts is modulus and tensile strengths, and then profiling of that, and that's the things that I'd like to get answered today, and we can talk about other stuff for certain, and just see what's going on, and then that way all these other folks out there will understand it, and we'll be able to make ask the right questions when they're going to a fitting, right,
Sure.
and come away with a better product.
So, Jim, the one of the questions you posed to me was, what's the difference between tensile modulus and tensile strength? And of course, there we go. Tensile modulus versus tensile strength. So tensile modulus evaluates the elasticity of a material, which is the relationship between the deformation of a material and the power needed to deform it. Where tensile strength is the value of the maximum stress that a material can handle, basically before it breaks. How we use materials in regards to making graphite golf shafts, it kind of begins with the classification of 3 different types of materials. So in this chart, you can see tensile modulus at the bottom and tensile strength along the side. In pink would be what we call standard mod materials. So these are the lower cost materials. This is the material that would be used to make a stock shaft, in a driver. Maybe not so much a shaft that you're being fit into, a high performance aftermarket shaft, just your everyday average golf shaft. In yellow would be what we call intermediate modulus materials. And these are the materials that we use to make Graphite Design shafts. Higher performance, higher in cost, of course, higher in modulus, a little bit higher in tensile strength as well. Then in green, these are the new material technologies that we deploy in our Tour AD shafts, for that matter, as well as the MAD product line, that being the T1100G, which you can see at the very top, the green star. That's a very high tensile strength material. And then the newer M40X. The M40X, being that red star, is a higher modulus material, but also higher in tensile strength in comparison to, say, the M40J and M46J you see in the yellow area. So from a standpoint of strength and modulus, the higher the modulus, I'm going to use the term better the golf shaft will feel. You have a higher count of fibers as well. And then the higher tensile strength, that's going to apply more stability in the golf shaft, okay? So that's where the T1100G comes into play. For instance, it offers more stability in the shaft, so we don't get a lot of dispersion, hopefully, when you're fit into a shaft with T1100G.
Okay, so we're just talking about basically in the shaft that I'm using, but in a lot of them, what you're seeing is a combination of these particular materials in order to deliver a certain feel, a certain product, a certain flight, a certain profile.
Right, that's what these materials help our engineers do, using different levels of whether it's tensile strength, higher tensile strength, or a higher mod material, or even a lower modulus material to develop the shaft bend profile they're trying to achieve for that particular design.
Cool.
So from a standpoint of our Tour AD HD, which would be our 2011 model, our Tour AD HD uses the M40X material technology in the mid to tip section. So the M40X, being a carbon fiber prepreg material that again is located in the mid to tip section, provides zonal stiffness tuning without an increase in the shaft weight. So in the old days, using the standard or even intermediate modulus materials, if we wanted a stiffer mid to tip section, we would maybe have to use 2 to 3 wraps of an intermediate modulus material. What that leads to is a heavier weight shaft, maybe even a reduction in the overall feel of the shaft. Could become boardy if it's extra stiff. We're trying to avoid that, obviously, and the new M40X material technology helps us to achieve that goal. So we're able to use 1 wrap of M40X in the HD shaft versus 2 or 3 wraps of the intermediate modulus material. So we're able to produce a stiff performing, stiff feeling shaft, but it's not overly boardy feeling, and it still maintains that good feel that Graphite Design is so well known for. In combination, the HD shaft also utilizes the T1100G material technology. This is located specifically in the tip section. The T1100G increases the tip stiffness to help minimize the energy loss at impact, but also again applies additional stability and an increased feeling of total ball control, as well as helps to promote the lower ball spin rates that the HD is designed to achieve. So those two technologies in combination, for instance, in our brand new 2021 model, the Tour AD HD, ends up in a shaft that's very high performance, uses these new material technologies, and fitters like yourself hopefully are able to put that in the hands of players and they can experience what this technology gives them.
So we always ask, and we've talked the idea of what makes a low spinning golf shaft, and the reality of it is yes, there is, we as the fitter have to take into account the type of swing, how the golfer delivers that club to the ball, and then make sure that the right shaft is in there in order to promote the lowest spin rate, assuming that's what we're looking for.
Exactly. Maybe you need more spin. There's other designs that we offer that can add ball spin back into the ball flight. Right. Basically is a high performance carbon fiber material that was developed by our material supplier, Torii Industries, based in Japan. And they supply most all of the carbon fiber materials that Graphite Design uses. Prior to the M40X material, it was either a higher tensile strength or a higher modulus material, but it was never high in both. And that's where M40X is kind of revolutionary. It's high in both. It also offers a 30% increase in modulus over conventional carbon fiber materials. So it's really quite a revolutionary material that we've added to our golf shafts. The first shaft that utilized the M40X was the XC model. That's the one that you've had a chance to hit, Jim. And then, of course, our 2021 model, the HD.
Now, what we were talking
future
about,
models will also use it as well.
now we talk about, if you go to the Graphite Design website and you look up the M40X, you'll see something that gives away this idea that it looks like it's a woven type of a sheet. And as we were talking, that it really isn't, because the material is just that good that you don't have to do that in order to get these structures
Right.
you're looking for.
Right. It's a high performance material. It's not necessarily weave at all, but high performance material that only Torii was able to develop,
Nice.
such that it's both higher in modulus and tensile strength. That's what makes it really quite unique.
Okay.
So golf shaft EI profiles, that's another question that I think you had been posed. And let's talk about what is a golf shaft EI profile. Well, first and foremost, what does EI stand for? E stands for modulus of elasticity, which would be the measurement of the stiffness of a material. I stands for area moment of inertia, which is the measurement of the stiffness of the cross-sectional geometry, in this case of the shaft. So golf shaft EI curves are very simply a measurement of the structural rigidity of the golf shaft from the tip end to the butt end. The EI curve is generated by taking an EI measurement of the shaft at increments of roughly 2 inches from the tip towards the butt along the shaft. The shaft is supported at 2 points. So if you can imagine the shaft being laid into the machine, there's 2 points where the shaft is laid into and supported by. Then we apply a set amount of force to the shaft, and the amount of deflection is then measured and recorded. So this would be an example of the EI profile of 2 different shafts. So as you can see, the blue shaft starting here in the tip section, moving towards the butt section, has a softer tip to midsection and a stiffer butt section, where the green line shaft in this case is stiffer in the tip through the midsection, but turns into a little bit softer profile as it gets towards the butt or handle of the shaft.
So that's what we're using as, when we get this information, again, as fitters, we get this information from the makers in order to be able to make these determinations. If we didn't have the ability to hit them, do a whole lot of testing, all this stuff, because they're doing this. And what this really is not somebody flexing them every it's a strain that they're putting on it these every 2
Right.
inches and measuring the deflection. And that a little bit more precise, right? We do, out here we do a 3-section version of the same thing, but in comparison, it's archaic, but it gives us an idea of what we're looking at if we don't have an EI curve, because let's face it, that's a lot of measuring.
It is. It's a lot of measuring. And this is the engineering application side of the shaft design process. Once the shaft's designed, obviously frequency and flex are important, both in the manufacturing process, but also at the fitting level. But this is kind of the heart of the shaft, where it all starts. And the engineer, obviously trying to design something that may be softer in the tip, stiffer in the tip, he's able to confirm that his design meets his design parameters. Exactly. So that's what EI profile and EI curves are all about. So basically, stiffer mid to tip profiles generally promote a lower launch condition and lower ball spin rates. The Tour AD Mad Pro and our Tour AD M9003, the GP, XC, and BB models have this type of shaft profile. It's the softer midsections and stiffer tips that generally promote a higher launch condition and lower ball spin rates. That's where the Tour AD DI, IZ, our new HD, and the VR models have this type of shaft profile. And then lastly, the softer midsections and softer tips will generally promote a higher launch condition and higher ball spin rates. It's the MAD Standard, our Tour AD MJ, and Tour AD SL2 series of shafts that have this type of shaft profile.
So if you see here, guys and gals, if you look, there's a lot of information you can take away on this particular slide, talking about launch angles and spin rates, or at least that's the beginning, right? This is the beginning, and where you would talk about selections. And again, when we get back to how you deliver the shaft or the club to the ball, with more fine tuning, but this is phenomenal material.
So putting it into what I'll call layman terms and simplifying how our shafts differentiate from one to another, this chart really summarizes it all, Jim. So starting at the top, for instance, our Tour AD HD, again, our 2021 model. As you can see, we've put a number and we've assigned it to the butt, mid, and tip section of the shaft. Down at the bottom, you can see those numbers basically equate to stiffness, 1 being soft, where 5 is very stiff. So in the case of the HD shaft, it's a firm butt section, a firm midsection, and a firm plus tip. It's that profile that is designed to promote more of a mid-launch condition and low to low mid ball spin rates. Comparing it, for instance, to the very bottom shaft, one of our most popular models, the DI, the orange and white shaft we talked about earlier, the butt section of the DI is more of a medium, the midsection is a medium, and the tip section is a stiff. That shaft is designed to promote high launch and low spin. So again, as you go through the fitting process, hopefully your fitter will have a selection of these different Graphite Design models that we can put into your hands. They can show you how each one differs. You get a chance to not only feel them, but see the launch and spin characteristics that they promote, and narrow it down to the proper shaft for your driver or fairway wood or even hybrids for that matter.
There you go. So one of the things that will be asked is, we see Tour AD. What does the AD stand for?
Tour AD, tour, obviously the tour. AD stands for accuracy and distance. So that's our moniker. That's been our moniker since the days of when Graphite Design Japan first started. Tour AD meaning tour, accuracy, and distance.
Okay, and then the next set of the HD.
All right, so each model starts base or has an acronym of 2 letters: HD, XC, VR, IZ, DI. So we kind of put a little bit of fun into it. DI stands for deep impact, right?
Okay.
IZ, into the zone. So like I say, each model has its own little acronym. It doesn't mean anything from a design standpoint, but that's how we identify the model. So I play a DI, my buddy, he plays the VR.
And I found out XC is Xtra Cary.
Xtra Cary, that's right.
Which we could all use. So we get through the driver shaft, and you hit on it, the hybrid shaft. We've seen a lot of that on TV for certain, in the driving irons and that kind of stuff. And how does that compare? How do the hybrids compare into the
Yeah,
driver shaft?
right. So we obviously have a hybrid offering. Our hybrid shafts consist of 3 different models: the IZ, the DI, and the HY. So this chart talks about, again, those bend profiles of those models. Starting at the top, our IZ 65 and 75 gram shafts are a little bit different from the 85 and 95 gram IZ, such that the butt section is more of a medium, the midsection is more of a firm, and the tip section is more of a firm, which is going to promote more of a mid to high launch and low mid ball spin. The IZ would be the stiffest in the 85 and 95 gram of our hybrid offerings. And as you can see, more of a firm butt section, firm midsection, and a stiff tip for more mid launch and low spin. So we move into the DI, kind of middle of the road, mid launch, low mid spin shaft with a soft butt section, a medium plus mid section, and a stiff tip. And then the softest hybrid offering, our Tour AD HY, which is designed for more to mid to high launch and mid spin. It has a medium butt section, a medium mid section, and a medium tip. So kind of a one-piece smooth feeling shaft in the HY, Jim. And then of course we have our driving irons and our standard iron offerings as well. We offer the driving iron in 85 and 95 grams. And then our iron offerings consist of 55, 65, 75, 85, and 95 gram offerings. And those are a constant weight taper tip design, meaning that the 3-iron shaft is designed for the 3-iron. You wouldn't tip trim it to be used for a 4-iron or a 5-iron. You use an individual skew for each individual club, which promotes a much more consistent feeling iron set through the bag, as well as, I think, from a fitting standpoint, you can attest to it. You see the performance is much better than utilizing maybe a unitized shaft where you tip trim in half-inch increments to get your shorter length clubs.
Well, there you go. So we're looking at basically a higher quality of graphite with now a new technology in the way of the material for graphite, produced in Japan, and it certainly has its own tour presence. That's a heck of a combination.
You couldn't have summarized it better, Jim. That's exactly right. Our focus is first and foremost, obviously, having tour players play the product, and then of course putting it in the hands of players through great fitters like yourself. And that's where it starts, is having the chance to hit the golf club with a graphite design shaft really kind of sets the stage for moving forward with the fitting and getting the exact right profile for whether it's a driver, a fairway wood, a hybrid, your irons, even into your wedges.
Nice.
So I really appreciate the opportunity to come on and talk a little bit about graphite design, Jim. Maybe there'll be a time where we can talk more about our irons and some of the other new designs coming out as well.
Well, honestly, that's the whole idea, right? We want to keep everybody informed of what's going on. Obviously, from what little bit of the testing I've done with the XC, Alvin picked out a good shaft for me. And we're going to do some real life testing on it before we give it the last final stamp of approval. And And maybe when we get down to, because we're both going to the show, so maybe we'll see you down there. We can
Absolutely.
do another
Yep.
one of these guys, and
That'd be a good time to do it. We can talk about our brand new 2022 shaft, the 280 UB then.
that would be awesome. See, look at that. We get to even break a little bit of ground with that. That'd be awesome.
All right.
So, Bill, I appreciate it. I appreciate you taking the time, all the way out in California, and really, I thank you so very much.
Not a problem, Jim. Happy to do it. Look forward to the next opportunity as well.
All right, and now that I've nerded you out, but we really need to know this. This is not just true for this particular shaft, but it's be true for all types of shafts. Where you can ask, well, is it a wound shaft or is it a sheet wrap shaft? What kind of tensile strengths are we looking at? How did you get to these different zones? These are the things that guys that are fitters need to know so that we can apply those pieces of knowledge to the swing, right? Because now when they do that, we do zone profiling, checking consistencies, weights, that kind of stuff before, and that's what I'm doing right now. This is a whole test about bringing this line on, right? And so we're going to go with this and we're going to test it. So I went and got another adapter. We're going to put it in my Callaway Max LS, and we're going to do some testing. So let's go hit some clubs. Alrighty, so that's what the hitting aspect of it is. Now the last bit is the personal preference thing. I like the coloring of the shaft. It's a black with a silver. It fades down into a silver. That's pretty good, and it has a little red accent, which makes for any kind of grip that you would want to be able to fit into it. I use the Align, the MCC4 Align in gray. Seemed to work fine. Now is it something I wanted to see? Yeah, it got out there in my latest bits of testing. Somewhere along the lines, this is normal for me. About 245, 255 at 100. So I'm missing, and I'm hitting the ball in the middle of the face. I'm just spinning it too much. Now I've gone to a different golf ball, and there's a couple of them where all the lower numbers are coming in. Those are the golf balls that I normally use, but they're not greatly reduced like they were before. So we're gonna play with this one just a little bit more. They have other models of shafts, and the other models of shafts may have what they call their low spin. This Xtra Cary tends to be one of the, probably does something a little bit like that. And the way that I'm hitting it, it was delivering the club to square for certain, and it doesn't feel harsh. It actually feels really, really nice. It doesn't feel boardy, and it's getting it out there where I want it to go. So am I confident I could play this? Yeah. Am I confident I can pull it? Yeah, because I did. Can I throw it? Yeah, but that's true with any other driver, right? If I could put them all in the center, you wouldn't be seeing me here, you'd be seeing me on TV, except for I'd have to hit it another 50 yards further. So it was, for a driver, 15 shots. If I took those, and there were 5 shots, so if I took a third of the shots out, I'd be mostly into the center. And that's pretty good for hitting a driver and still be in that 245, 255 range. And what I do is I have my machine set a little bit more conservative, so I don't get tons of roll, I don't get all that flight. I set it at a lower altitude, and only because I do that so that I don't give customers a false sense of hitting the ball further. Right, so when I get out there, the reality of it is it's probably 250, 260 club, and that's normally where I'm at. So, and that tracks with my gamer. Okay, yeah, I know I'm going to get that question. Oh, did you compare it against your gamer? Yeah, I did, and I've had my gamer in there for quite a long time, and I still like my gamer. Will it pop it out of the bag? We'll see. Right, it's given me the same. It's given me the same performance and with about the same level of consistency. It just spins a little higher. So how it's still getting it out there, Xtra Cary, right? How it's getting it out there is still something I have to check on. So all in all, what do I think? I think it's a good shaft. I think it is a well-made shaft. We saw the technology that went through it. I think that's a phenomenal setup. I think that you can, you know, in being able to see these different shafts, it does feel very good. It does perform very good. So if you're looking for an aftermarket shaft, maybe in this Graphite Design, want a little extra snap into the ball, it could be that, and you see how I swing, if you could, if you're looking for that particular feel or something like that, and you're just not quite getting through to the ball, this very well may be that shaft for you. But again, always go get fit, make sure it's the right shaft for you, make sure that you're getting everything out of the shaft that you're putting into it. 147, I'm getting pretty close. And that's really what we want, right? And so I don't have to swing really, really hard to get the things out of it that I need. But go get fit. Make sure you get what you are. And if you got any questions, put them in the show notes below. And as always, let's see your scores. Go low.